Program management is where CISM stops being theory and starts becoming your daily job. This is 33% of the exam, and the part where you will spend most of your time if you ever sit in a CISO chair. Here's a quick story. Previous companies spent millions in shiny security tools, but 6 months later, nothing changed. Why? Because no one was managing the program. Controls were not tracked, training was outdated, and leadership had no idea what information security was delivering. So Priya fixed it. She built a control lifecycle, updated awareness training, and reported results in business terms. Finally, security showed real value. That is the difference between a program on paper and a program that really works. Hi, I'm Laura, and I passed the CISM exam after years away from formal study, and here I make the hard stuff simple. This video is your shortcut to Domain 3 program management. We will cover how to develop a program and get resources, how to use frameworks and roadmaps, how to manage controls and awareness, how to integrate with IT and vendors, how to measure, report, and communicate results. And like always, I will test you along the way with ISACA style questions. If you can answer the recap questions at the end, you are ready for Domain 3. And if not, don't stress, because I have made a free CISM cheat sheet with all the exam keywords. You will find the link in the description below. And if you want to go further, my Beacons page has also all the CISM resources to help you pass, like the full study guide, flashcard, AI prompts, and my exam study planner. Everything in plain English, so grab a coffee and let's dive into Domain 3. This is your CISM show with Laura, and let's make security simple. Domain 3 is the biggest chunk of the CISM exam, a full 33%. That means more questions here than in any other domain. And it's also the most practical. It's the work a CISO spends most of their day doing. So if you get this domain right, you are already halfway to passing the exam. Let's break it down. So before you can manage a security program, you need to build it. That means people, funding, processes, and tools. And here's the catch. Security rarely gets a blank check. Quick story. Mark, the information security manager, tried to get approval for new SOC analysts. The request sat in finance for months until Mark linked it directly to protecting revenue from a new business product launch. Suddenly, it was approved within 10 minutes. And that is the point of this section. Resources are always limited. So your job is to connect security investment with business value. Here, we will cover what resources every program needs, how to compete for funding, and the exam traps around ideal versus realistic programs. A security program is more than a set of policies. It's built on four pillars: people, process, technology, and data. If any of these pillars are missing, the program collapses. Policies on paper mean nothing if you don't have skilled staff, working processes, the right tools, and data protection built in. And of course, all of that requires alignment with the business. Let's see what that looks like. Security doesn't get unlimited funding. Every dollar competes with other priorities: marketing, operations, product development. To win funding, you have to show security in business terms, protecting revenue, reducing downtime, enabling new products. That's how leadership understands value. And when you win that funding, you need to know what resources really matter. The essentials are clear: people to run the program, technology to support them, and executive buy-in to keep momentum. Without those three, the program stalls. You can buy tools, but without people and leadership backing, it will not go anywhere. Now, let's check your understanding. Now, which of these is most critical for a successful security program? I'll give you a moment to think. And the answer is B, senior management commitment, because without leadership, even the best tools and staff won't succeed. So once you have secured resources and leadership, the next question is how do you structure your program? That's where frameworks come in. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are frameworks that give you structure and credibility. Quick story. Arjan's company proudly passed their ISO 27001 audit. Certificates on the wall, emails from leadership, but the same week they suffer another breach. Why? Because they treated ISO like a checklist, not as a living guide for managing security. Arjun turned things around by tailoring the framework to his particular environment, using it to align security with business goals, and making sure compliance did not replace real protection. That's what this section is about. Knowing which frameworks matter for the exam, tailoring them to your environment, and avoiding the checkbox compliance trap. When you build a program, you don't start from zero. Frameworks like ISO 27001, NIST, Cybersecurity Framework, RMF, and COVID give you structure and credibility. They provide a common language for both auditors and leadership, so you don't have to invent controls from scratch. But just having a framework is not enough. How you use it makes all the difference. The biggest trap is treating frameworks like a checklist. Every organization is different. You need to adapt the framework to your size, your industry, and your risk profile. A checklist might win you an audit, but it will not stop breaches. So, how do standards actually bring value when used the right way? Standards provide structure and credibility. They show leadership that the program is based on recognized best practices, not just personal opinion. At the same time, flexibility is key. You take the principles and adapt them. That's how a framework becomes a foundation and not a cage. Let's test this with a quick question. Do you know why do organizations adopt ISO, NIST, or COVID? I will give you a moment to think about it. The correct answer is B, to provide structure and alignment. Frameworks don't guarantee security, but they help align people, process, and technology under a common structure. They are a guide, not a silver bullet. Now that we have seen how frameworks give structure, the next question is how to actually plan and prioritize projects. That's where roadmaps and enterprise security architecture come in. Programs don't run on chaos. They need a roadmap. Otherwise, you will end up with 20 half finished projects and no real impact. Story time. Maria took over a portfolio where half of the security initiatives were not aligned to any business objective. So Maria prioritized them against actual business drivers, and half of the projects were cut overnight. And suddenly, the program started delivering real value. That's what roadmaps and enterprise security architecture do. They connect business goals to security priorities. In this section, I will show you how to build a roadmap from business cases and gap analysis, how architecture ties strategy, risk, and technology together, and how ISACA tests your ability to prioritize. A program without a roadmap is chaos. You end up with projects that don't finish, or worse, projects that don't matter. A roadmap is your plan, built from business cases and gap analysis, that tells you where to put your energy for the biggest impact. And the roadmap does not stand alone, it connects directly into enterprise security architecture. Enterprise security architecture is what ties business goals to security priorities. It's the bridge that links strategy, risk, and technology. Without architecture, security is just a pile of tools. With it, security becomes part of business execution. So, how do you actually decide what gets done first? Not every initiative deserves the same attention. The roadmap and architecture help you focus on high value projects that align with business strategy. That way, security is not slowing the business, it's enabling it. Let's check this with a quick test. Now, think about it. Why do we build a security roadmap in the first place? Is it to list every IT asset, to impress auditors, or is it something else? The answer is to prioritize projects by business value. A roadmap is about direction and focus, not asset inventories and not just pleasing auditors. That's why ISACA loves asking about the purpose of a roadmap. It's a strategy, not paperwork. So now that we have mapped out where the program is going, let's talk about what makes it work day to day, controls and their life cycle. Every program lives or dies on its controls, but controls are not set and forget. They follow a life cycle: design, implement, monitor, and retire. Quick story: Paul's company was paying thousands of dollars each year for a data loss prevention tool. The problem: it was not even turned on. That is not security, that's wasted budget. So he fixed it by creating a proper control lifecycle. Then controls were tracked, effectiveness was tested, and all tools were retired when they were no longer work. That is how you make controls deliver value. Here we will cover the types of controls you need to know, the life cycle and why monitoring is critical, and how exam questions test the design versus effectiveness. Controls are the backbone of any security program. We group them into three types: preventive, detective, and corrective. Preventive tries to stop incidents before they happen. Detective identifies when something slips through, and corrective brings things back to normal. A strong program needs all three, but just having controls is not enough. They have to evolve. Controls follow a life cycle: design, implement, monitor, and retire. The mistake most companies make is treating controls as set as forget. If you don't monitor, you will never know if the control still works. And if you don't retire old ones, you are wasting budget and creating confusion. So let's think about what happens when controls are left unchecked. A control that is not tested is dead weight. It gives a false sense of security and drains resources. Testing and adjusting keeps controls alive and makes sure that your money is actually buying protection. Here's a quick check to make sure that this sticks. Imagine that you discover a control that still exists, but is costing a lot and barely reduces risk. What should you do? Keep it for audit, rewrite it, or maybe retire it? The best option is to retire if it's no longer cost effective. That's how you keep your program efficient and relevant. ISACA loves this distinction. Controls are not eternal. If they don't deliver value, they go. Now, controls protect technology, but the real wildcard is people. That's why awareness and training are next. Technology will not save you if your people don't understand security. Awareness is about broad understanding. Training is about giving specific skills. Story time. Sonia was a brilliant developer. One day, she clicked on a phishing email, not because she was careless, but because her only training was a muted 20-minute video once a year. So Sonia changed that culture. She made awareness fun and memorable. She designed training that built real skills, and she scheduled it at key moments, at onboarding, yearly refreshers, and after incidents. That is how awareness and training actually reduce risk. And by the way, if you like examples like Sonia's story, I have put more of them into my study guide bundle with the frameworks, templates, and exam traps explained in plain English. You will find the link in the description right next to the free cheat sheet. Now, in this section, we will cover the difference between awareness and training, when training should happen, and the exam traps about measuring effectiveness. Awareness and training sound similar, but they are not the same. Awareness is broad understanding, making people conscious of risks. Training is skill building, teaching them exactly what to do. You need both. Awareness changes culture, training changes behavior. But timing also matters. When you deliver in that training is as important as what's inside it. Security training isn't a one-time annual checkbox. The key touch points are onboarding, regular refreshers, and after incidents. Those are the moments when people pay attention and when training actually sticks. And of course, training quality makes or breaks the effort. Bad training is boring, people tune out. Good training is engaging and relevant, it changes habits. When training connects to real risk in somebody's job, it stops being a video to click through and starts being something they use. Let's check this with a quick scenario. Let's think about phishing resilience. What works better? Posters on the wall once a year or engaging role based training that people can actually apply? And of course, the stronger approach is engaging and role based training. Awareness posters raise visibility, but only training tied to real tasks changes behavior. That's the kind of detail that ISACA looks for. Now that people are trained, the next challenge is integration, how security fits into daily IT operations. Security is not a separate kingdom. It has to live inside IT operation, patching, change management, DevOps, even cloud migration. When integration fails, you get outages, finger pointing, and increased risk. Quick story. Raul worked at a company where the security team lead had hardened a critical system. Then IT pushed an untested patch without review. The system collapsed overnight. Roll fixed it by embedding security into IT operations. He made sure that security was part of every change request. He worked with DevOps to shift left, and he aligned cloud migration with security checks. That's how integration turns security from a blocker into a partner. In this section, we will cover how to embed security into daily IT operations, how to integrate with modern DevOps and cloud, and why exam questions focus on collaboration instead of silos. Security does not live in a silo. It has to fit into daily IT routines. Change management, patching, service desk, all the things that keep systems running. If security isn't backed in here, controls will fail at the worst moment. And this becomes even more urgent with modern IT models. DevOps and cloud move fast, so security has to shift left, meaning earlier in the process. If you wait until deployment, it's far too late. Integrated security keeps speed without sacrificing safety, because when security is not integrated, the results can be painful. Poor integration means outages, finger pointing, and higher risk. Good integration means resilience and teamwork. When IT and security partner, systems are both stable and secure. Let's check your instincts with a quick scenario. If security is ignored during IT ops, what is the real consequence? Faster audits, more dashboards, or more outages and risks? The greatest risk is increased outages and risk exposure. That's why ISACA pushes integration questions. They want you to connect security with operations. And beyond IT, the next challenge is external, vendors and third parties. Your security is only as strong as your weakest vendor. Quick story. Emma once received a spreadsheet from a supplier and surprised it contained customer PII, sent with no encryption, no password, nothing. One careless vendor mistake, and suddenly the company's entire compliance posture was at risk. Emma tightened the vendor management. She built security clauses directly into contracts. She required regular audits and SEC reports, and she made sure that Trust Verify became the standard policy. That is how third party risk was finally under control. In this section, we will cover how to build security into contracts, how to monitor vendors with audit and SOC reports, and the exam traps around trust versus verify. Vendors are not just partners, they are part of your risk surface. If they are insecure, you are insecure. That's why security must be built into every contract from the start. Once vendors are onboarded, they also need continuous oversight. Trust is not enough. Vendor monitoring requires audits, SOC reports, and regular assessments. Without oversight, you will not know if a partner is putting you at risk. And the weakest link is not often you, but them. One careless supplier can undo years of your own work. That's why proactive vendor management isn't optional, it's a core part of security. Here's a quick scenario for you. What is the best way to manage vendor risk? Blind trust, annual posters, or putting strong SLAs and audits in place? The right answer is including SLAs and audits. ISACA wants you to remember, verify, and don't just trust. And once you manage vendors, you will need to prove your program works. That's where metrics come in. Executives don't care about firewall logs. They want to know, are we reducing the risk and at what cost? Metrics are how you prove that the program is working. But numbers without the context can be dangerous. Quick story. James was proud when phishing click rates dropped to 3%. The leadership even celebrated the improvement, but then they discovered that one of those was the final director with $1 million approval rights. So James fixed the reporting by adding business context. He separated management metrics from operational ones. He linked results directly to business impact, and he stopped reporting vanity stats that look good but hid real risk. That is how metrics actually drive decisions. In this section, we will cover management versus operational metrics, how to link security results to business impact, and how to avoid exam traps with vanity metrics. Metrics prove your program has value. They are how you show leadership and the board that investments in security are paying off. Without metrics, you are asking for blind trust. But not all the metrics are equal. Good metrics include patch timelines, phishing click rates, and incident detection speed. These tell you if security is reducing risk. They are clear, measurable, and actionable. And how you present them makes all the difference. Executives don't care about technical data dumps. They want business language, impact on revenue, operations, and customers. Translating metrics into outcome is how you get budget and support. Let's put this to the test. If you are presenting to the board, what's more effective? Firewall rule counts, raw scan data, or a simple risk chart tied to business impact? The best approach is risk charts and business context. ISACA wants you to connect technical data to executive priorities. And that leads directly into the last piece, communications. Even the best program fails if you cannot explain it. And the audience matters. The board wants risk in business terms. Operations want technical detail. Quick story. Anita once presented raw vulnerability counts to the executive team. The room went silent, blank shares everywhere. So she rephrased the message. If this system goes down, here's the revenue that's at risk. Suddenly, the conversation changed. Budget approval doubled. Anita learned that communication is as critical as the controls themselves. So tailor the message to the audience, keep it simple, avoid jargon, and translate security into business impact. In this session, we will cover how to tailor communication to the different audiences, the power of simplicity over jargon, and the exam traps that confuse technical versus business reporting. Different audiences need different messages. Executives care about business risks, while operation teams need technical details. Tailoring is what makes your communication land. And to tailor well, you need clarity. Cut the jargon. Translate security into plain business language. If your audience can't understand you, they will not support you. When you get this right, the payoff is real. Clear communication builds trust and makes budget approval easier. That's the hidden superpower of good reporting. Let's finish this chapter with one last check. When you speak to executive, what works best of all the options here? The best answer is reducing jargon and showing business impact. That's what decision makers need to hear. It's not about controls, it's about outcomes. Let's wrap this up. We have covered a lot in this domain, from resources and frameworks to control, awareness, integration, vendors, metrics, and communication. But learning is not just about hearing it once. Before we wrap up, let's see if you are really ready. I have put together a few key questions that reflect how ISACA likes to text you on domain 3. And right after that, I give you a quick summary of the main concepts and the next steps so everything stays fresh in your mind. Let's put this into practice. Here are some of the kind of questions that ISACA loves to ask in domain 3. If you can answer this in your own words, you are exam ready. If not, don't worry. That's what the summary and the cheat sheet are for. Let's go through the key takeaways together. Here's the big picture of domain 3. A strong program starts with resources and executive support. Frameworks give you structure, but they must be tailored. A roadmap and enterprise security architecture connect strategy, risk, and technology. Controls need a full life cycle. Awareness and training change culture and skills. Integration with IT and vendors builds resilience. Metrics and communication translate security into business impact. Your next steps? Download the cheat sheet for this domain, review the key terms, and keep practicing with real exam style questions. That combination will make domain 3 much easier on exam day. And now let's celebrate! You have completed domain 3. All right, that's domain 3. From resources, frameworks, control, awareness, vendor, metrics, communication, this is the domain where security becomes real work. In the exam, you will notice that the questions are less about definitions and more about practical judgment. So think like a CISO. When resources are limited, what keeps the business safest and running? To help you revise, I have made a free cheat sheet with the exam keywords for this domain. You will find a link in the description below. And if you want the full package, study guide, flashcards, AI study prompts, and the planner, they are all together on my beacons page in plain English. Because if you can explain domain 3 in your own words, you are already exam ready. This was your CISM session with Laura, and remember, let's keep security simple.